Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to give you a little bit of an insight as to what I've been doing when I'm not playing disc golf, when I'm not recording videos for my channel. I've received a lot of constructive criticism, some destructive, but mostly constructive criticism for a lot of people I've had discussions with on my channel, in the comment section, and in other areas from Reddit back in the day when I used to be on that subreddit more, the disc golf subreddit, to Facebook when I posted, you know, my form and wanted to get some feedback, etc., etc. So I've compiled sort of a list of all the critiques and criticisms into a Google document that I've been working with over the last few months to try to sort it and arrange it and get a good idea of what I'm doing wrong and what I should do or attempt to do to try to fix it. And so the reason I'm making this video is I've received a lot of requests from multiple people over the last few months to kind of go into what I've been doing. As many of you know that have followed my journey on this channel, about 2 months ago, I signed up with the Stokey method. I signed up at the end of November and started doing the drills in December. And this is basically where I've been doing the drill. Cypress Wood hole 2, where I set up 1 or 2 cameras, my Sony Handycam and my GoPro 9, to give me different angles, and then I get typically 5 to 10 putters. More recently it's been 5 because it's easier to keep track of everything, although it takes more time to go back and forth. But this is essentially what I've been doing. I've been doing drills out here. The reason why you've never seen it on my channel is that I've never published any of these videos. All the videos that I've made, I've published for review by trainers under the Stokey method, for them to look at what I'm doing wrong and to suggest fixes. And that's actually been very helpful. The problem that I've had is that doesn't translate onto the course. Scott himself doesn't recommend that you play a bunch of disc golf and do these drills, because what you're trying to build with these drills won't translate immediately onto the course, because you're breaking bad habits and building new ones, even though the drill is imperfect. So my problem as a content creator is I generally try to produce videos weekly, you know, on different courses, different challenges, different people, doing different things. And that's just something that's half of my hobby. My hobby is disc golf video production, but half of it is disc golf and the other half is video production for my YouTube channel. And those two hobbies are intertwined, and I don't want to give up either. It's been suggested that I basically stop one to work on the other, but what I've done and what people haven't seen is I've actually been doing a lot behind the scenes, not related to playing disc golf or putting content on my channel. So the purpose of this video is to show you what I've been doing. Before I show you where I'm at right now, I'm going to show you a little bit of a clip montage of where I started, what I've been doing leading up to this point, and then from there I'll just kind of show you where I'm at. Okay, so you can see that there's been a progression in terms of what I started at and what I'm doing. And so I want to kind of go through what I've been working on now, which I'm going to switch over to this camera because you'll get to see more of what I submit is essentially from this camera, from this view, and it's more helpful for them to see what I'm doing wrong. But I also include footage from the rear video. But let me just go through the tips that I'm working through now. The problem that I'm dealing with is wobble, and there's a few things that are causing this wobble. So what is wobble? Wobble is off-axis torque. When you throw the disc, it's supposed to essentially spin at a pretty decent rate, but regardless of the spin rate, it's supposed to essentially be flat. What I do and what many others do when they are throwing is they do bad things with the disc as they're pulling through on the swing. It's not so much a backswing issue, although that's part of it. The problem is once you start doing the swing, a lot of people aren't actually pulling through and releasing through. So the problem I've had is that I basically, when I reach back, the disc comes back like this, and then I start doing this, it comes out like that, and then the elbow drops, and then this does this motion, and when it comes out like that, and it produces wobble. That is not a clean release, and that is what causes wobble. Wobble is not a fast spin rate. Wobble is off-axis torque. The center of the disc that's supposed to spin is right here. What happens is the center of gravity is elsewhere, and the angle is changed as well. It's complicated. I don't think I can properly do it justice, but that creates a less stable flight path for the disc, and what happens is the disc basically turns prematurely or excessively or aggressively, or if it's an overstable disc, it may hold its line a little bit better flat and then drop, and you rob a lot of the potential speed from the disc because of the drag, the excessive drag, and the turbulence that's created as the disc is going through that. So there's a set of things I've been doing to fix in terms of my body when I'm doing these drills, but there's a separate section which is independent of those drills, which no matter how I throw needs to be fixed, and I want to kind of walk you through what those issues are. Okay, there are a number of things that I do wrong when I'm throwing. Number one is this shoulder here is actually driven up. For some reason, I've got it into my mind to bring this shoulder up in order to keep this disc somewhat flat during the throw. The problem is the elbow gets dropped down, and what you have is an issue where the elbow is lower than the disc, the shoulder is higher than the disc, which the shoulder higher than the disc isn't necessarily a problem if you're throwing it right. So what you're supposed to do is essentially grip it like that, to where the elbow, wrist, and arm is essentially a single line like this with the disc in line. And so what you're supposed to do is essentially bring it through like that. It comes through the power pocket, and then it's expelled like that. Well, that is a problem if I am driving the shoulder up. If you look at all the pros, they're essentially leaning forward, not this way or that way per much, but they're leaning forward, and their shoulder's almost driven down. If the shoulders are not going to be on the same level, the shoulder that you're driving with is actually the one that's supposed to be lower, but then the rest of this is supposed to be like this. So it's okay if the shoulder and elbow are not at the same level. The problem is if the elbow and the wrist and the disc are not on the same level, that's what produces the problem. So you're supposed to do that. It's supposed to look more like that than what I've been doing. So tip number one given to me is lower the right shoulder below the chin so that both shoulders are level. That is a starting point. You may potentially lean a little bit lower, and you could potentially go up if you're deliberately aiming up. But if you're trying to throw flat, essentially, the shoulders should be more in line than this. This is wrong. This is more right. This is probably a good baseline to start with. Tip number two, lower the disc at reach back. Another problem that I've had, which is caused inadvertently by the elbow drop, is this disc comes up, and what you have is an issue where it quote-unquote cuts across my neck. Drew Nguyen pointed out to me really early on when I was working with him early last year. I have a problem where this is basically coming up like that. And so what partially fixes this problem is deliberately lowering the disc this way during the reach back or extension or whatever you want to call it. I'm not here to language police. We know what we mean when we talk about the disc being here. And by doing this, by lowering it, it helps to prevent the problem of this coming up. So that's one of the things I've been trying to do, and it's hard because my body wants to do this. Whenever I'm throwing, doing the backswing, it wants to come up like this. And this has been one of the hardest things for me to try to fix, okay? So the tip I was given, lower the disc at reach back, pulling below the pecs. The forearm, disc, and elbow should be on the same plane, and that should be flat. Stop bringing the disc up during extension is the summary. So that's one of the things I've been trying to work on. And it's so hard because it's so natural for me to go, okay, I'm gonna throw, and then I just do that. Tip number 3, pour the wrist down, pour the coffee. So a lot of us have heard pour the coffee. You're supposed to essentially do this. You don't have to do it like this or, you know, grossly extend, you know, that's an exaggeration. You don't have to grossly extend this to where it's out of line. Some people do that. That's not the purpose of pouring the coffee. Is not to go down as far as you can go. You want essentially the same. If you want that plane here, that's as far as you pour the coffee. You don't pour the coffee like that. That's too much. You know, we use these feel-good or feel-based mechanisms to explain things, but pour the coffee is only to get you here. If you can't reach to here, get as close as you can to there as possible. In other words, if you're like that, get it as close as you can and adjust as needed. So that's that tip there. Tip number 4, stop pointing the disc downward. That makes it cut the neck during the swing. So the downward, what they mean is the nose angle downward. So that's one of the things I do whenever I am pulling back. This comes through like this. So the trick is to, in tandem of keeping it lower, is make sure I don't do this when it's lower. So even if I'm going to do this as my mechanic for bringing it up, which I don't necessarily have a problem with from a technical standpoint, having this as a backswing, a lot of pros do something similar. They actually bring it up like this. Although personally I like to navigate more towards like this. But I'm okay with this provided that everything else is good. Because in theory, I could get this on the right angle like this, make sure this shoulder is lower, and then do that. Tip number 6, keep the elbow up through the swing. And actually, I'm seeing a lot of people talk about this on YouTube, about keeping the elbow up during the swing. So many people that are creating YouTube content have this issue, as well as some pros I've seen have this issue, like Eric Oakley, for example, where this is naturally too far down, and you create this issue where this is an exaggeration, but the elbow, disc, and shoulder are on 3 different planes, and that creates wobble. That is one of the big issues that causes wobble. It also robs force from the disc. You see how little the extension is? So if you get it more like this, you have a greater range of motion here, and that actually gives you a greater ability to put force on the disc. You can put more force on the disc. It's a more efficient swing path to do that. Okay, there's another tip here which isn't listed in my 8 tips here for some reason, but one of the problems I have is whenever I throw, ignore all the other issues I have for the moment here. Whenever I throw, I have a tendency of not bringing the disc in the power pocket. It comes out like here, and so it's outside the power pocket. This creates 2 problems. The first problem you have when you have the disc and it doesn't go through the power pocket is you're robbing the potential force that you can put on the disc. What makes a disc fly far is you putting force on it. The harder you throw, the more effort you put in. Those are related, but those aren't unique to this, to what causes this. Part of it is the efficient swing plane, all the issues that I mentioned before, but also if this doesn't come close enough to your body here, you can't eject it as much. So it creates an issue where you limit the amount of force you can put on the disc. I'm sorry if I'm not explaining this as well as I planned, but that's essentially one of the two problems. The second problem is the ejection point emanates farther from the body than here. So it's supposed to do that. Whenever you swing, there's technically two arcs. I know people have a problem thinking that there's two arcs because they just think either A, it's going through a line, or B, you're creating an arc. But an arc is a simple geometrical movement. It doesn't have two vectors or angles. It does that and then that. That's what the disc does. If you look at a top-down view, the disc spin and throw is based off of that. The idea that you're spinning and ejecting the disc, as well as others. And so that second arc is affected by doing that. And so when you start from out here, you have a greater chance of releasing late because of that, or a greater chance of, if you do release it at the right angle, because you've robbed it of some of the energy, you're fluffing it basically. You're essentially letting it come out prematurely without enough force, and you can feel it. I can feel it, and that's one of the things that a lot of times if you hear me throw and I say, oh man, I fluffed it, that's what is happening. That is the actual thing that happened. It didn't come through the power pocket as much, and I let it go before I could really put the heat on it, the smash factor, as they say. Tip number 7, which is technically 8 at this point, stop moving the arm ahead of the body. This I have a problem particularly with my upshots, where I'm going to throw that way. I'm just doing an upshot, I'm doing a standstill, and I'm going to do an upshot, and then instead of like doing that where the whole body helps out, I do this. And when I do this, the arm comes out, and I'm actually robbing some of the potential energy or force from the disc, because you're supposed to be able to do that even at a lower level. Like if you're a pro and you're only going to throw 200 feet in an upshot, they do a way to, whatever they do, a figure 8 or whatever they do to put force on the disc, but their torso moves with the arm to help eject the disc, and that's why they don't have to put as much effort into it, because their body and everything is kind of helping them do that. For me, I have a tendency of going, okay, just presenting the disc out towards the direction with the body being completely detached from that. So that robs it of distance, but that also creates a problem where a lot of times when I let go, I'm letting go too late. So not like the 10 or 10:30 position, but more like 11. And then that also creates what I call an Anhyzer effect. Accidental Anhyzer, you've heard me say. Because what happens is the wrist has to sort of make up for what the body's doing. I know this is my way of explaining it, but it makes sense to me. But by putting too much arm into the throw, it's also messing me up. And this is something I'm trying to work on, is to use the body to help, you know, build that momentum and then release like that. Last but not least, I want to talk about something not directly from the Stokey methods. It's from, I think his name is Jaani. He's going places on Instagram, but he's also on YouTube. And he had talked about the domino effect in throwing. And that's a big problem I have whenever I'm attempting to throw, is I can't get that. And other people have talked about other things. Stokey talks about it as well as others. But the whole bit where you're pushing energy from your feet, up your legs, through your hips, through your torso, through your shoulder, through your arm, out through the disc, that whole whip effect. And I have a problem doing that. And that's actually one of my sticking points with the current Stokey drill that I'm doing, is that I'm not, whenever I'm getting to the point where I've got the disc at full extension, this foot is essentially at roughly the 90-degree angle. This foot is closer to back there. And then the hip is at a 45-degree angle, and I'm about ready to throw. I'm having a hard time having that whip effect or domino effect. Even illustrating it here, I'm having a hard time doing it to where I can effectively produce the force on the disc. So even though my lower body is more in the correct position that I'm needed to throw, my body is unable to, and I'm working on it, and I've been advised by, given tips by their trainers and Scott on how to deal with this, and without revealing anything that they've said, because I'm still loyal to the program and I think it's working. but I have problems. I 100% accept responsibility for my inability to do this because I built up bad habits over 4 years, and a simple drill isn't going to make my body stop doing it. So the main thing I'm doing is I'm keep working on it, a position to where my whole body comes through, and that's the sticking point of where I'm at right now. And keep in mind, we haven't even been talking about the off arm or anything like that. What we've gone through so far, that is not really a factor. And to be honest, this off arm is not been my limiting factor here. I'm not trying to do anything purposefully with the off arm, although I've done some drills where I basically practice, you know, throwing, getting this involved, but I haven't even gotten to that part yet because of the hang-ups I have with the throwing beyond that. So I can't even do that properly at this point. So I hope this gives you an idea of some of the issues that I'm working with here. The problem with the backhand is that it's such a complex movement and there's so many things to think about that it causes me issues trying to throw it properly. Now, I think what you need to do when you're thinking about the backhand is only think about the things you're doing wrong and work on those. You don't have to think about every possible aspect in the backhand throw. My problem is I have so many things that are incorrect with my throw that even if I try to focus on one, other things are wrong, and me fixing that per se throws off other elements, and so I'm having a hard time correcting. And so that's all a part of the process. But the thing I'm trying to make clear in this video is I am actually working on this outside of the disc golf videos that I'm making, outside of the videos that I produce and publish. And I've played less disc golf since joining the Stokey method than I have in years. I'm playing literally only the disc golf that goes into these videos. I'm not playing extras. Before I had a YouTube channel, I was playing a lot of disc golf. Poorly, I might add, or I will add, did add, come at me, bro. No, but seriously, I played a lot of disc golf. I've played a lot of disc golf. And even when for the last 2 years plus making, you know, hundreds of videos for this channel, I played a lot of a lot of disc golf outside of recording videos. We might record one round and then go somewhere else or play another round at the same course but do something different. And so when I decided in 2022 to change my form, and I did a lot of things to do that, I started doing less disc golf and I did more watching form reviews and watching all of the videos that all the content creators have ever made on YouTube to try to fix my form. And I managed to do some things, but I reached a plateau. So then I went to the Stokey method, and that's helped me as well. And I've even played less disc golf, but that's also caused problems. So that's one of the things I wanted to share with you here. I'm still working on it. You're just not seeing it, and I hope that helps. I hope you liked the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, as I have more interesting disc golf content on the way. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.